All right. Hello. Welcome to another Wisco Fanatics Wednesday. Before we start, we want to give a quick shout out and thank you to our official sponsor, Parker Johns. Yeah, you can see we got some Wisco Fanatics t-shirts on today. We got Parker Johns on the sleeve logo there, which is a reminder. Today will be the last day for sharing Wisco Fanatics posts for winning a $25 gift card. That's going to be every month. So make sure you're sharing the Wisco Fanatics posts, and you will get entered in a chance to win a $25 gift card from Parker Johns. Got a lot to talk about today. We're going to start with the Packers, and we're going to talk about the Brewers, and we're going to close out the show by closing out the Bucks regular season, or the Bucks postseason, and we're going to finish it off by talking about games 5 and 6, and then some of the after stuff about the Bucks. But we're going to start with the Packers. So Jake and I went to Packers practice this morning, made a bunch of observations. If you've looked at the page, you'll see all the pictures that we posted from there. And I think Jake has some more that we're going to put up on there, so you can see some of the pictures from the Packers practice. But Jake, I'll let you get started, and let's talk about some observations we had from the Packers practice this morning.
First of all, when we got there, it was hot. First of all, anybody that went there was a little sticky. My stepson certainly thought so. Where we were sitting, it was right in front of the DBs, so we got to watch Jair and Amos. And Amos is a massive dude. And I looked at Tyler and I was like, "You wonder why wide receivers don't like to be left dry over the middle?" Just getting laid out by that guy.
Adrian Amos could be like the junior quad father.
Yeah, he's put together, man. Jair, swaggy is all. And, Adrian Amos comes out all white out, shoes, legs, gloves. He looked like a thug. And they were doing a little drill today that me and Tyler really enjoyed. And there was a little jump ball drill. And they had Jair going against the rookie Eric Stokes. We're obviously all excited to see Eric Stokes. And it was a little rebounding drill. They just throw the ball in the air, kind of like a tip off to start a basketball game. And Stokes actually won both of them, against Jair. Jair's not a big guy, but, to see the guy that you're going to have to, learn a lot from, and, he's going to be the one teaching you, and you just go head up at him and go right at him. That's something that I really, really like, Stokes to have that mindset. Another thing, when they started the 11 on 11s, I made sure to watch Stokes a lot, and he was covering MVS, who's obviously, our fastest or one of our fastest players, and he ran a route all the way across the field, and Stokes was with him right on his hip the entire time.
While you're on that subject, before I let you keep going, as you're talking about that play happened with Eric Stokes taking first team reps.
Yes, that was something that we noticed as well right away. Kevin King was a no-show. Not sure
Kevin King wasn't there today. I don't know if he's hurt, if he's getting traded, if he's not there, if he's holding out. I don't know what the deal is with Kevin King. Maybe he'll be there tomorrow.
So we didn't even see him there. He physically was not there.
I mean, even Za'Darius was there, and you mentioned this morning when we were there that he's on the PUP list. I mean, Dominic Daphne was there, and he wasn't suited up. DeGuara was there. Yep, he was doing sprints and stuff, so he's getting ready to be back. Probably, I would think, ready for the regular season. So, everybody was there except for Kevin King was the only guy we didn't see.
Actually, I didn't. No, I didn't see Bakhtiari. Did you see Bakhtiari walking around?
I didn't. Now that I think about it, no, I don't think so.
Maybe they were working outside or something like that. I'm not sure.
Maybe.
Those are the only two that I didn't see. There was a lot of things that I liked today. We saw Amari Rodgers taking punt return, coverage. He was the only guy down there. Maybe I could go to the biggest news outside of Aaron Rodgers coming back. And what do you think the biggest news is, my man?
That's a tough question. Outside of Aaron Rodgers,
what's the biggest thing that happened today?
It's probably Randall Cobb.
Yeah,
Randall Cobb will be back in green and yellow.
Yeah, year. Man, I'm excited about that. A lot of people are kind of like, but really seeing the trade, we didn't really give up that much, and we're getting a lot more back than we were for a 6th-round pick, anyways.
Oh yeah,
and this is the kind of stuff. There's been players in the past that were traded for 6th-rounders, linebackers, defensive linemen, stuff like that were like, dang, they took a 6th-rounder. Like, why do we just hold on to these picks? And that's the kind of stuff that Rodgers is really going after when he was doing his presser today. Like, back when he did that whole thing on SportsCenter where he was like, it's the way that the company or the franchises ran, the people make the franchise, and he was talking about the way that they go about things. Sorry, my cat's trying to drink my water on the ground.
So we've talked about this a whole bunch of times that, the Packers need to take an approach that the Patriots took with Tom Brady. They need to stop overvaluing the draft picks. Like when Julio Jones was dangled out there.
Yeah.
The guy now that I want the Packers to seriously take a look at is Chandler Jones, because it was rumored that he asked for a trade a couple months ago. So he's, he might be wanting out of Arizona now that they've signed J.J. Watt. I mean, I don't know if he thinks that's going to take playing time away from him. But I mean, like a guy that impactful is out there and he fills a need that the Packers have.
Yeah. I mean, really the only impact guy in our line is Kenny Clark.
That's it.
Yeah. And tell these people what you thought of, who am I thinking of, 95, Lancaster, when we saw him in real life.
He looked kind of short and he's kind of small. He does not look like a defensive end.
No, he's actually kind of small, to be honest with you. I said he's just round. He's just round, man. And, Dean Lowry's our biggest guy. And, like, Dean Lowry's not small. He's 6'4", 300 pounds.
Dean Lowry is a decent size. And honestly, I think Dean Lowry is a decent player.
Yeah.
I think he's a serviceable defensive end. What he needs is an impact guy on the other side of him.
Yeah, I agree.
Because, when you're running away from somebody and you go, you're going at Dean Lowry, he can hold his own. But when you have, not great defensive ends on both sides, that's where the Packers have struggled with some run defense stuff.
Makes it pretty easy to just double down on Kenny. And something I saw today, actually, is they moved Kenny over to defensive end for a couple plays. And they put Lancaster in the middle. I mean, you're going to single up Lancaster. One thing that
you can at least try to get him to take up 2 blocks.
Right. Or even if you stunt him the right way and he can just get off of one guy in the middle, maybe he'll flourish in that role. I'm not sure.
That's an interesting thought. I got to say, with that thought process, one of the things that I have written down that I wanted to talk about is the new defensive coordinator. You kind of mentioned it during the 11 and 11s. He's hyping the guys up, and he's doing it from a, in a positive way and also in, like a get your ass in gear kind of way. Talking about, there was one play where something happened on the defense and he got up onto one of his DBs and he says, if they score, it's your fault.
Yep.
So he's coaching them up. He's putting responsibility on guys' shoulders and also supporting them when they're doing well. I think it was the DB coach. You mentioned that rebounding drill that they were having him do about going up to tip like jump balls. And the little speech that he gave before that drill started was talking about Dennis Rodman. He's talking about it, and he said Dennis Rodman made himself, he set it out to be the best rebounder. That was his one thing that he did, and he was going to be the best at it. And it's like, okay, so now you're taking that, that logic from a basketball player and applying it to a group of position players in the NFL. And you're saying, hey, you guys are 1 of 11 on the defense. This is your thing to be good at, is being a defensive back. And then they did a drill out of that. So I actually thought that was a kind of like a cool analogy, type of thing to get the guys going. Let's talk about some offense.
1 sec before we switch to offense. I wanted to bring up your point that you made today because I like when you sound smart and I like to point it out. We talked, we were in a group chat and we were talking about, Howard, the Miami Dolphins corner requesting for a trade. And you talked about how Jair doesn't really get targeted that much because he's just all over players. Like he's just that good on coverage. So it's really great for us it would be really ideal for us to have a big turnover guy opposite of him. So drills like that, high pointing the ball, knowing when they attack, those are good drills for those guys to have, especially a guy like Stokes, who in college has a couple pick sixes. I mean, last year alone, I think he had 2, if I remember correctly.
Yep, I think so.
Yep. He had 2 pick sixes. So if he's a guy that's opportunistic and can take the ball away and make it hurt double, I mean, that's nothing but great for us, man.
Yeah. I did have one more thing on the defensive end, and that's about Eric Stokes. Definitely wanted to give him kind of like a shout out because I mentioned it to you that every single time that Stokes and Jair weren't out on the field getting a rep in on a practice play or in between drills, every single time Eric Stokes was right up next to Jair asking him questions and talking to him. Every single time.
And Jair was willing to talk, and that's something that you need. You need great leadership,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you watch the pressers, I know everybody's probably seen the Aaron Rodgers one, but if you guys don't have the Green Bay Packers app on your phone, please download it. You can watch all the press conferences. You can see all the injury reports, everything, and make it really easy. Adrian Amos has a press conference that he did today, and he talks about the players, buying in. They asked him a question about the NFC Championship game and what the expectations for this year is, and he basically talked about we can't get back to that point unless we do the work now. You have to do the work all year long to get back to that point and beyond, So I think there's really, really great leadership on this team. We have a great mix of veteran leadership and young guys who are hungry. I mean, they're all hungry, but I mean, I really like this team, man. I think the Aaron Rodgers thing, as complicated as it was good for us. I really do. After seeing everything that's transpired today, hearing how everybody thought, I think it's a good thing.
All right. Well, let's talk about some offense. First thing I want to do is clear up I don't know if people saw the tweet or not. Rob Domofsky tweeted that Davante Adams got hurt in practice. Just want to say he's fine. I don't know exactly what he did, but he was down for just a couple minutes, and just a couple minutes after that, he was up and he was running more plays. So he's fine. He's not hurt. Just want to clear that up for anybody who may have seen the Rob Domofsky tweet that Davante Adams is injured. He's not. He's fine.
So he got punched in the balls.
That's what I heard. I heard he got a nut shot, but let's talk about the offense. What caught your eye at the practice about the offense?
Well, Aaron Rodgers is the baddest man on the planet. Every time I talk about Packers offense, I want to start with Aaron Rodgers because he's that good. Davante Adams, probably the coolest looking wide receiver in the league. Outside of those two things, the things that caught my eyes was Jordan Love's progression. Man, he is worlds ahead of where he was last year. He looks like a legit backup NFL quarterback now.
Yep.
I do not know how he would do it as a starter. But I'll tell you what, when they're running those drills, everybody that's been to the practice, they have two nets, and there's two holes in each net, and they put a couple, dummies down, and they make them slide back and forth, and the coach basically goes, huh, and he tells them which way to throw, and the quarterback just lets it go. First of all, his mechanics are better, they're quicker, they're stronger, and he was accurate today. I mean, me and you saw probably the play of the day where he threw a perfect touchdown to the far left corner to Amari Rodgers, right over the DB, and Amari made a great catch. So those two things, two young studs right there, second-year pro and a rookie, hooking up like that allows me, to feel good when a Davante and Aaron are done. I'm not saying that they're going to be as good. I'm not comparing them at all. I'm just saying, we'll still be all right, I think. I think we'll still score some points.
Yeah, and it's it's a chemistry thing too. I mean, if they can get that started before they're even first team guys, I mean, that's only going to make their their impact stronger. And I think AJ Dillon is a part of that. And I wanted to bring him up because AJ Dillon is going to punish people. He's going to punish some people this year. I do not envy anybody who has to try to tackle him when it's cold out.
Oh my! And all our home games are cold games, dude. We were just looking at the schedule today. All of our home games are basically cold.
Amari Rodgers, he's actually really doing a lot. So you mentioned already the play that he had up the left sideline into the left corner that he caught for the touchdown.
Yep.
I know you were talking to your dad before the show, and you mentioned that he lined up wide left. He's known as a slot receiver, but he lined up wide left. And Davante Adams came across the formation and lined up in the slot. So they're kind of mixing some things up there, which is, an interesting thing. And then you mentioned while we were watching it that, they can have them crisscross and, that can mess with DBs on the other team. And that's a lot to keep track of. And then on that play where, everybody's got their eyes on Amari Rodgers and Davante Adams, they ran up the middle with AJ Dillon.
Oh, and the thing we're not mentioning is the guy that scored 10 touchdowns last year, and Robert Tonyan.
Exactly.
And we watched a couple plays after that where Tonyan got schemed wide open over the middle,
open
We're watching the red zone drills, by the way.
Right
They're
at the
doing
hash
red zone
marks.
drill. Yeah, he got wide open right over the middle, just sat down right there. Everybody else was running across. Linebackers, DBs are just like, what the heck's going on? And Robert Tanya's just like, yep, bloop, 3 yards away from the end zone. I'm wide open. Easy little pass.
Easy touchdown. Yep. And then the other thing with Amari Rodgers is he's doing some of that pre-snap motion. We talked about it basically every single week last year about, who's going to fill that Tyler Irvin role. They brought in Tavon Austin later in the season. But now they've drafted Amari Rodgers, and he's being used in that Tyler Irvin role a little bit. I think we'll probably see Randall Cobb do a little bit of that pre-snap motion stuff. But they're running him across the formation in a jet sweep type of situation where, they're not waiting for him to complete his pre-snap motion. He's coming across the formation as the ball is getting hiked. So we might see some Amari Rodgers jet sweeps this season.
I mean, I could see some jet sweep fakes and a screen to Randall Cobb. I mean, there's just so many options you could do, man. How do we feel about the presser on Aaron's comments?
That's the next thing I was just about to bring up.
I'm going to let you go first. I want to hear what you have to say.
So I don't have a ton to say about it, but I have one big takeaway.
Yep.
And my big takeaway is that it's not that he wants to be making decisions. It's that he wants to have his voice heard on the decisions. He doesn't want to be the decision maker, but he wants his voice to be heard when there are decisions to be made. It's not, you need to do what I say and that's it. But he just wants you to say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Somebody made the comparison to Giannis with the Bobby Portis situation. And it's a pretty fair point. When Bobby Portis texted Giannis and said, hey, come get me. And Bobby, and Giannis went to the front office and said, hey, I think we should go get Bobby Portis. And they did. And they won a championship. I'm not saying that Bobby Portis is the only reason they won a championship. That's not what I'm getting at. But
he was the only player to score off the bench in Game 6. I'm just saying.
I mean, you can attribute that to Giannis dropping 52, but and Pat Connaughton missing all 4 of his shots, which is unfortunate. But it hurt his percentage a little bit. If he drops even half of them, Bucks win by double digits. But yeah, I mean, that's what I took away from Rodgers is that, he doesn't want it to be whatever I say goes. He just wants it to say, hey, while you guys are thinking about this, this is what I think. And when we've talked about this in the past, my stance on it has been quarterbacks are the smartest players on the field. And Aaron Rodgers is top of the whole league in terms of smart quarterbacks. So you're talking about one of the smartest players in the entire league of over 500 players. Why wouldn't you want to listen to him? Why wouldn't you want to hear what he has to say? What he thinks, what he sees on the field. I think Gutekunst is a pretty solid GM, but he doesn't play on the field. He's not watching the games from the sidelines. He's not interacting with, all of the players as often as a guy like Rodgers is. So why wouldn't you want to hear what he has to say?
I agree. Here's my thoughts on it. I brought in Xavier Howard, earlier. And one of his comments about, him wanting to be traded is he doesn't feel valued by the Dolphins. And I think that's a word that we can probably use with Aaron Rodgers is he didn't feel valued. His opinion wasn't being heard. And that's why, he's getting all this money, but really at the end of the day, it's not about money. He can make his money, in other ways, in endorsements after his career.
Yep.
But what people are going to remember
Jeopardy.
Aaron Rodgers is his legacy, right? That he leaves on the football field.
Yep.
And we're hearing, in the presser, he talks about how players have come up to him and asked to play with him and come to Green Bay like, hey, come get me. And he goes and tells them, and they're just kind of like, yeah, nah, it's not going to happen. There was a video floating around. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but about Calvin Johnson. He gets hit in the game against Green Bay, and he looks over at Aaron during the game and says, hey, come get me. Calvin Johnson, dude. Do I have to say anything else? Calvin freaking Johnson. He's 6'5", 240. He ran a 4.3 40. I want that with Aaron Rodgers. I mean,
he's like DK Metcalf before DK Metcalf.
Yeah. Oh, okay. DK Metcalf does not deserve to be in Covenant.
I mean the body size. You know what I mean?
I know. I'm just giving you shit. But look at Brady, man. He brings in Antonio Brown to the Patriots when he was going through all that legal stuff. Brown, misses this basically the entire season. Tom Brady goes down to Tampa, still brings in Antonio Brown. That is a franchise valuing their Hall of Fame quarterbacks' opinions.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that the Packers need to do. And I said it when Rodgers tweeted about the Bucks winning the title, that he was throwing shade at the owners. Good job GM for doing this. Good job owners for doing this. Good job Peter for doing this. I'm like, bro, he's being so petty right now, but he's not wrong. And Dylan, every smart Packer fan agreed with everything that Aaron Rodgers said, because we should have at least one more Super Bowl in the Aaron Rodgers era. Yep. At least one. I can think of two right now. I can think of two off the top of my head. Last year and 2014. Those both should have been.
And I would consider even going back to 2011 when they went 15-1, beat the Giants in the regular season, and then lost to the Giants in the NFC Championship game.
No, we lost in the divisional.
It was a divisional
playoff game. But our defense was so bad that year. That's why I didn't say that year, because our defense that was the year that Nick Collins got hurt week 2 against
Carolina.
Our defense was really the poop. I mean, 2014 we were okay on everything, and Aaron Rodgers was the man. And last year we were absolutely phenomenal in all areas, and we could have won. So I give us at least one, maybe two, that we would have beat the brakes off Kansas City.
Yeah.
So Darius would have had a field day.
Yeah, I missed the Collins.
Actually, did you just see the Packers retired players tour? It was
no, I didn't.
It was Ryan Grant, Nick Collins, James Jones, and I don't remember the last one. Oh, Ryan Grant. But they were all going around. Oh, Ryan Grant? Oh, I don't know who it was then. There was 4 of them. But anyways, they were going around like hospitals and seeing kids and stuff like that. But yeah, seeing Nick Collins, man, that was awesome. I mean, James Jones still looks like he's in the same shape. He
does. Yeah, just get him a hoodie and put him back on the field.
Man, hey, if they bring a Cobb back, they talking about bringing Jordy. Why not bring Hoodie Jones back, man?
All right. You have anything else you want to talk about with the Packers? I mean, I know one of the things that I mentioned, you were talking about it while we were watching. You're like, man, I can't wait for the season to start. I'm like, easy. I'm like, I want to see the preseason.
Yeah.
Because I said I want to see Jordan Love play, an actual game. Obviously, it's still a preseason game, but I want to see like actual in-game action from Jordan Love before we get to the season.
You know what about Jordan Love in preseason? It's going to be very interesting because he didn't really play at all last year, obviously. Mm-hmm. Didn't get any preseason. This was his first practice in front of fans.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see. I think he's made a big leap. I really do. But for him to, and I've said this about life too. I mean, I'll be a life coach right now. The only experience that really matters in life is firsthand experience. You can't you can explain to somebody how something feels or how it looks, but you can't really know what that situation is like until you're there. So yeah, that was 2014, Dylan, by the way, to backtrack. But you can't really know, what anything is like until you do it. So I'm very excited as well to see Jordan Love. I hope he's just dropping dimes, baby. I really do. Hope he's dropping dimes, running for touchdowns. I hope we got a young stud back there, man. Just to shut up all the haters, really. Especially the Bears fans. And I don't want to look bad on Fields, but god dang it, I hope he sucks for the Bears and he lights it up somewhere else.
I was just gonna say, I hope Jordan Love ends up being better than Justin Fields, just because that would be. Just keep their quarterback revolving door going.
Man.
So the Randall Cobb deal is official now. The Packers are sending a 6th-round pick to Houston. They're getting him for a 6th-rounder, and Houston is also retaining $3 million of his $8 million contract for this year. So,
$5 million. He's basically Pat Connaughton for the Packers.
That's a solid comparison, actually.
And you know how I feel about Pat Connaughton. I know how you feel.
Oh, yeah.
It's appreciated. Randall Cobb can do a lot of things for us, man.
I agree. And one of the things that's kind of slides under the radar is his relationship with Amari Rodgers.
I got something. about yeah, that's good. I got something my dad told me on the phone actually. You didn't hear. So part of the reason that my dad heard this on the radio, don't know how true it is. Don't come at me for this. He said Raga will suck on the Bears as well. Yeah, I know, Josh. He talked about how Rodgers' girlfriend, Shaylee Woodley or whatever,
Yep, Shailene
was
Woodley.
kind of iffy about moving to Green Bay. But apparently her and Randall Cobb's wife are really, really tight. So they were hanging out this offseason, and Aaron basically looked at Randall and said, hey, I'll get you back. So that might have been some part of the reason why they're kind of like, we're going to keep Aaron happy, keep his woman happy, you know. But, I mean, also Randall Cobb does good things, and him and Aaron have a good relationship.
That could just be another bonus to it, that helps out, Rodgers off the field life a little bit too. He talked a lot about it in his press conference that he spent a lot of his offseason just getting into a better headspace, being better mental health, just being a better person, being a better version of himself. So, he didn't specifically, mention his fiance's name, but a lot of that stuff ties into a lot of the pictures that we saw of him spending time with her this off season. So,
they say behind every strong man is a stronger woman. I firmly believe that, man.
I think that's probably even more true for professional athletes who are gone for so many big chunks of time, with travel and off season, and then guys can live in different areas, away from Green Bay. So I mean that's a big deal. So
James, I agree. We did need a slot. Tyler and I have talked about that for days on days, man. We miss Randall Cobb.
And I'm excited for Amari Rodgers.
I mean, we missed Jermichael Finley for how long? I mean, he dropped the ball. But Jermichael Finley demanded respect down the middle, going deep vertical as a tight end. We finally got that with Tanyan. And then, when we didn't have Finley, we had Cobb, and then we got the tight end, and then we didn't have Cobb. So now we have it both. And we still have a bona fide number one, an MVP quarterback, a top 5 wide receiver. I would say a top 7 to 5, offensive line. A lot of good offensive lines out there now. I'm not going to say
I would say probably a top 6 or 7 running back.
Yeah, I mean, we got
a wrecking ball behind them.
And we'll see. I hope this year, something that I really hope is that LaFleur, lets go of that grip. I feel like he's holding himself back. Like there's been situations where like he could be more aggressive and he could do certain things. I want him to do it, man. Just go for it, man. We only have so many years with Aaron Rodgers, and then when you have a Jordan Love, that's when you can hold back on certain things because Love's not going to have experience in certain things. You have an Aaron Rodgers, man. You have a unicorn. Ride that mother, Let's go.
Yeah, James, I can't wait to see more A.J. Dillon either. Sitting next to some of the guys that we were talking to at the Packer practice and, talking about how he's going to be running people over in cold weather. Right away I thought about in the NFC Championship game where he was kind of getting tackled. He had a guy on his back and he just lifted him up. That was so nuts. I can't wait to see more stuff like that. That was a linebacker, like a 250-pound dude, and A.J. Dillon just stands up with him on his back. That's so nuts.
Yeah, and he made him look like a 10-year-old.
So nuts that he just stood up with a dude on his back. Nuts.
Sports is really the greatest medicine that America has to offer. I will just say that right now. It really is, man. It takes all the distraction away.
And this is really fun too because we're getting into what is going to be our second season. It's going to be the first sport that we're doing a second season of. We started this show last September, right at the end of September, and we barely had a framework for it. We were just going to be like, hey, we're going to show up and talk about stuff. And now, we've got some more structure. We hit 750 followers today, which was cool.
Thank you, by the way.
And we're having a lot of fun. And now we're getting into our second Packers season, and we are going to be doing sometime during the Packers season. Right now we're looking at early November doing a live show in Green Bay so that we can have some people come out and watch us live for sure, which would be a lot of fun too. So yeah, excited to get into our second Packers season, and it was fun watching the Packers practice this morning and seeing them get back into it.
Look what my cousin said.
I see that.
Yeah, he's big. By the way, we saw him in real life today. Very big human being. Very big.
His one of his legs was like the same width of Jordan Love's both legs.
Dude, Jordan Love is so skinny, man. He's just a skinny, lanky guy.
And he's lean, like he's in good shape,
yeah.
but
He's one of those wiry guys, He's wiry strong.
Yeah.
That's what they say. Instead of calling you skinny, they call you wiry.
yeah, I mean Devin Funchess is the exact same way. It's like his leg is like this long and like this wide around.
Dude, Devin Funchess just looks like he has a really long ankle. Like his ankle was going, and then like calf.
then they just like put a calf muscle on there.
Yeah, dude, his calf muscles are huge but he's 6'4". Just I don't know, he has long legs.
his between his knee and ankle is just like 8 feet.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. Oh man.
All right, man. You want to talk anything else about the Packers before we move into the Brewers?
No, but I will tell people we're going to talk some fantasy football, so look forward to that.
Yeah, sometime in August we want to give. We should maybe do that not next week, but the following week. Next week, just so anybody knows, we're going to be doing the show live on Friday night next week or Friday afternoon. Next Wednesday is my wife's birthday, so we're going to move the show from Wednesday to Friday next week, so can hang with the wife on her birthday. So next week, August 6th, not on the 4th. Wednesday, not Friday. All right, let's talk Brewers. You and I had the same cool stat written down. I'll let you share it because I probably have more stats anyways. So start off with the Reds series. Did you have anything from the Reds series that stood out to you?
No, I have, before the All-Star break, I told you guys the stat of the Reds having the same amount of losses against the Diamondbacks as they did against the Brewers, and the Brewers were 5-8 against the Reds, and it was really, really huge for us to come out and sweep them and tie up that season series and really take control of the division again. I thought that was really big coming out of the break.
For sure. So they won 11-6 in game 1, 7-4 in 11 innings in game 2, and shut them out 8-0 in game 3 of that series. The first game, 11-6, Willy Adames, 4 RBI. Colton Wong had 3 hits. Luis Urias was 2 for 4. Jace on base was on base 3 times. Hauser had an okay game, and then the bullpen lights out. Game 2, 11-inning game. It's one of those things where the Brewers are starting to get to a point where they're having a lot of extra inning games. But that's kind of what happens when you have a low scoring offense and a lot of pitching. You get into a lot of like 2-2 situations or 3-3s, and that's where you got to finish games, and that's where we've been pretty lucky to have a pretty good bullpen even with all the turnover this year. Second game, in that extra innings game, 8 different players with hits, 6 different guys with RBI, just a really big team effort. Woodruff pitched decent. His pitch count just got away from him in that game. Yeah. And then I was so frustrated for Corbin Burns because I thought for sure he was going to be able to get his complete game. He got so close. I'm like, we just need a double play ball. We just need a double play ball. And he just couldn't get a ground ball. I wish he could have channeled his inner Brett Anderson and gotten a ground ball to get out of that game. The defense just couldn't get it done. It was so close. Rowdy Tellez had the error, and the bases ended up loaded, and he ended up with like 107 pitches or 112 pitches. I don't remember. He was in that range. But Angel Perdomo came in, struck out 2 guys to end the game, so it still got the shutout. 8 1/3 innings, 12 strikeouts, just 1 shy of his career high. Luis Urias, Christian Yelich, Willy Adames, Tyrone Taylor, Jackie Bradley Jr. all had 2 hits in that game. Let's move on to Kansas City. So the Brewers come out of a sweep of the Reds and then lose a 2-game sweep against Kansas City Royals. Very not good baseball team. I don't know if you have anything coming from that series.
No, we just shouldn't be losing to the Kansas City Royals. That's what I have written down. I have the score.
Yeah.
I looked at the pitching, and I'm like, why are we losing to the Royals, dude?
Yeah, basically all the hitting disappeared in that series. It comes back, a little foreshadowing to the series from this past weekend, but Avi Garcia and Manny Pena, only multi-hit players in the game. They lost 5-2 in the first game, 3-6 in the second game. And the first game, they only struck out 8 times as a team. So like the Brewers are striking out a ton this season, but they didn't strike out a lot in that game specifically. So they just couldn't find the grass, whether it was bad luck or just too many ground outs, fly outs. But yeah, they just couldn't get hits. Which sucks for a guy like Brett Anderson, who takes a lot of heat when he doesn't pitch great. He had 5 innings, only give up 2 runs. You got to be able to win those games.
Yeah, you do.
It happens. We complain about it when Woodruff and Burns don't get run support, but all 5 guys need run support. You can't win if you don't score. And then Hunter Strickland finally gave up runs as a Brewer for the first time. He's pitched 14 games, and it took 12 games for him to give up a run. So, David Stearns picking up Hunter Strickland just for cash considerations. David Stearns is a wizard. We're going to talk about some trade targets in a little bit, but grabbing a guy like Hunter Strickland just out of nowhere who comes in and starts contributing, I mean, that's awesome to see. And then in the second game, they lost 6-3. Yelich, the only one with multiple hits. And then again, Eric Lauer, he's a guy that takes a lot of heat because he's not a flashy player. He's not a strikeout guy. He's a ground ball pitcher. Gets a lot of soft contact, but he has one bad game, and he's one of those guys that everybody overreacts and it says, why is Lauer even on this team? It's like he's on this team because he can have games where he pitches 5 innings and gives up no runs, which is what he did. He had 5 innings, no runs. You got to be able to win those games.
Appreciate that, Dylan. Really do.
And then, all right, so let's move on to Chicago White Sox. Courtney and I were at the first game of that series. They won 7-1. Let's talk about the White Sox series.
Well, first thing I want to say is I like beating up on teams from Chicago. That makes me happy.
I want to say this really quick before I let you talk about it. White Sox fans are far friendlier than Cubs fans. Just want to throw that out there.
I mean, think about Cubs fans, man. They are kind of entitled because they're told like, oh, we have a legendary stadium, we have a legendary logo, we have a legendary team. Oh, the Cubbies. Well, look at Steve.
I see Steve in the comments.
You better be ready for football, man. We won't beat up on the Bears, bro. He said, shut up.
He probably saw the caption on the bottom when we were talking about the Packers and probably shut it off and then came back.
I enjoy beating up on teams from Chicago. I always will. He said, "Shut up, man." I'm sorry. I lost my own train of thought. I just have written down that you said that the hitting, went away in Kansas City. I wrote down that run support came back versus, the White Sox, except for the final game where it was just one bad inning for Woodruff, and it was that inning where the bottom of the lineup really did all the run support, the 8-hole, and then who was the pitcher that day? I forgot. Big fella, Lynn or whatever, right?
Yeah, Lance Lynn. Yep.
Yeah, he used to play for the Cardinals.
Yep.
The QB for 1 year. Hey, he didn't rule out being here for 2022, by the way. So do your research, my man.
Go watch his press conference, Steve.
Yeah, they only voided the last year in his contract, which is 2 years away from now. You just going crazy off that one, thing on Instagram, which everybody is.
Stop listening to Adam Schefter, by the way. We should have mentioned that when we were talking about the Packers. Stop listening to Adam Schefter.
We shouldn't have to say that. After he went on there and said that he didn't have any credentials.
And he always says sources, quote unquote sources. Like, yeah. And even Rodgers said it wasn't a draft day thing. Like, Schefter, I think, honestly, did that for attention, if I'm being 100% honest. I lost a lot of respect for Adam Schefter this offseason.
I agree. So back to baseball. Like I said, final game. That game was on ESPN, I believe.
Yep.
The Brewers, they played great in all 3 games, except the last game, second inning was a little rough. Woodruff, but he pitched. He just couldn't find the strike zone, I think, in that game. He missed on a couple pitches, and then he put himself in a position to throw a couple two-seamers, late in the second inning. And why would you throw a two-seamer to the pitcher in that situation? Why not just throw a, off speed or make him chase or throw something up or throw something down? He goes back to the two-seam, and Lynn just finds grass and knocks a couple of runs in, and that was basically that game. But outside of that, man, I mean, the Brewers really they shut them down. White Sox are overrated because they're from Chicago, so all Chicago teams are overrated in my head, and I'm going to let Tyler say some stats.
All right, so I will come back to Woodruff because I'm going to say the same things that I just said. First off, like I said, Courtney and I were at the first game of that series when Freddie Peralta got pulled in the fourth inning, and I'm like, what's going on? Craig Counsell had a planned tandem start between Freddie Peralta and Adrian Hauser. It's going to happen again. So if you see a guy get pulled early in a game and you're like, what? Freddie Peralta's only got 4 innings and 51 pitches, or why are we pulling him already? If you see another starter come in right after that, that was a planned tandem start. It's going to happen again. Craig Counsell said it with 6 guys in the rotation and some off days mixed in. They're going to have some tandem starts, A, to keep guys fresh and healthy, and B, to make sure everybody's getting reps, basically. So Freddie Peralta and Adrian Hauser in that game, 6 innings combined, 7 strikeouts, no hits. Just a huge game, honestly, from basically everybody. And then the 7th inning was really, really fun to watch. Bunch of guys getting hits, drawing walks, and then Tyrone Taylor started his own hot streak and launched a grand slam. Stadium got real loud when Tyrone hit that grand slam.
I can imagine.
8 guys with hits in that game as well. So getting more, that's very good. You're getting hits up and down the order. Game 2, Christian. I almost said Christian Burns. Corbin Burns, another solid outing. 6 innings, only 1 run, 6 strikeouts. Colton Wong led off the game with a home run, just launched it first pitch, launched it up into the third deck. Rowdy Tellez hit 2 solo shots, and Tyrone Taylor kept his streak going. And then Tyrone Taylor again stayed hot in the third game. The Brewers only got 8 hits in that game. Lance Lynn just got a big extension from the White Sox, and he showed off why. The Brewers only managed 8 hits, and 4 of them came from Tyrone Taylor and Jackie Bradley Jr., who each had 2.
You want to know something that was interesting about that third and final game? It was the lowest combined ERA for the 2 starters in Sunday Night Baseball history. I don't know. I remember watching the game, and I remember hearing that. I was like, wow, Sunday Night Baseball's been on for a long time. So
and the Brewers do not appear on it often.
I mean, yeah. But
it's kind of annoying.
Lance Lynn had like a 199, and Woodruff is just over 2, like 2.04.
I think the Brewers have 3 in the top 5 for ERA in the NL.
Well, they talked about that too. This is an interesting conversation. I wanted to bring it up without saying anything to you. They talked about, the race in the NL for the Cy Young, and potentially have, a couple people taking votes away from each other. I mean, just on the Brewers alone, you're going to have people be voting for Corbin Burns. You're going to be people voting for Brandon Woodruff. I mean, where do you know what?
You know how we're going to solve this? It's going to be the 3 finalists for the Cy Young Award, and it's just going to be Brandon Woodruff, Freddie Peralta, and Corbin Burns.
I mean, I'm cool with that.
We'll see what happens with DeGrom. He's probably still the front runner for it, I would say, but his health is definitely going to be a factor if he's going to be around to win that award.
Yeah, what if he doesn't get enough innings, man? All of a sudden, that thing could be handed to Woodruff, man, honestly.
And that's, back to Woodruff. He pitched 7 innings, only gave up 3 runs. You got to be able to win those games.
Yeah, and he only really got hurt in the second inning, man.
And so I wanted to bring that up. I mentioned Lauer and Anderson and Woodruff, that you got to be able to win those games. When the Brewers score 4 or more runs, they're 49-8.
God damn.
That's insane. You don't need to score 4 runs to have a 5 out of 6 chance to win the game, basically.
God,
that's like an 83% chance to win the game if you score more than 4 runs.
Wow.
That's how good the Brewers' pitching and defense has been. You need 4 runs to have an 83% chance to win.
I mean, last night, Who am I thinking of? Oh, Narvaez got 4 RBIs by himself last night. So, I mean, right there, he gave us our 80+% chance to win.
They put 8 runs on in the first 2 innings.
Yeah, they
on
were
road to a 9-0 shutout.
I mean, Pittsburgh. Ass.
Yeah, I see you, George. 49-8 when they score 4 runs.
Look at my man G-Hawk talking some Brewers baseball. I like it, my man.
So, last night, 8 runs in the first 2 innings. Lorenzo Cain, Rowdy Tellez, Avi Garcia, Omar Narvaez, Colton Wong all had 2 hits last night. Brett Anderson, another solid game. 6 innings, 3 hits, no runs, only 1 walk. He pitched those 6 innings with only 72 pitches.
Yes, he did. He was a man on a mission last night.
Dude, so this is where the situation where I'm getting into. Adrian Hauser, he's been decent. As far as a number 4 starter is concerned, pretty solid. The Brewers are apparently a Vegas betting odds of 15-4 to get Max Scherzer. I don't really think that they need to because he's got some pretty insane deferred salary after this year. But
imagine Scherzer in our lineup. Holy shit.
So, as we talk about this, Brett Anderson and Eric Lauer, they're 2 ground ball, soft contact type pitchers. So they are the perfect complement to the power pitchers that Woodruff, Burns, and Peralta are. So when you see those guys, you don't have to be bummed out that you're not seeing one of Burns, Peralta, or Woodruff, because those other guys have such a contrasting style of pitching to the way that those other 3 do. That messes teams up. And that's where you get into a situation where, Brett Anderson, he's had games where he's pitched 7 innings, give up no runs on less than 80 or 90 pitches, just because he gets guys to ground out so much. And it's why Brent Suter is 9 wins on this season. He doesn't strike a lot of guys out like Josh Hader does, but he gets a lot of guys to ground out.
Hey, man,
he doesn't even pitch that hard. He doesn't even pitch that hard. His fastball is like 87, 88 miles an hour. That's his 4-seam fastball. But his pace, the way that he pitches, the speed that he pitches, not his pitching speeds, but how he gets back to the mound and he's ready to go again as soon as that batter's in the batter's box, that throws hitters off, and then he gets a lot of ground outs. Brent Suter's 9-4 this year. He has 9 wins.
There is a quote from Randy Johnson, and every one of us as a kid who were born in the 90s loved Randy Johnson because he threw him 100 miles an hour and he was awesome. And then he killed that bird once. Yeah. I knew you were going to say that because we all loved it, right? But he has a quote talking about, Greg Maddux, and he wants kids to watch Greg Maddux to learn how to be a great pitcher. Because Greg Maddux didn't need overpowering stuff. He just hit his spots. You talked about pace. He went his pace. He hit his spots. He did his pitches. He was a pitcher. Where Randy Johnson and Randy Johnson was great, don't get me wrong, but he could just reach back and just reach levels that nobody saw before. Now it seems like everybody's throwing freaking 95 to 98, and it's just like, what the heck is going on here? But, players like Suter, they just hit their spots and they get their outs, man. That is where baseball is, that's what baseball is. There's nothing wrong with that. But I wanted to bring that quote up, and I knew if I brought it up, you're going to bring up the bird. I knew it.
That's probably one of the first things that everybody thinks about when they hear the name Randy Johnson. They probably think of the Arizona Diamondbacks jerseys that had the cutoff sleeves, and then they think of Randy Johnson hitting the bird. Those are probably the first 2 things you think of when you think of Randy Johnson. Maybe the mustache. Maybe.
So I got a question. Did you know that last night was Anderson's first win since April 17th?
I mean, he was on the injured list for a good while, so that doesn't terribly surprise me, but good for him.
That's a long time to go without a win. And you talked about ground balls. He had 12 ground ball outs last night. That's a lot.
That's 12 ground ball outs out of 18 outs that he recorded.
Yeah. So
2/3.
Yeah, 2/3. It's a lot.
That'll do. So one last thing I want to bring up. Actually, a couple things, just a couple news things. Christian Yelich has COVID, so he's going to be out for 2 weeks. So we get Lorenzo Cain back, and now Christian Yelich is out.
Yeah.
Until we trade either Lorenzo Cain or Jackie Bradley Jr., at least Tyrone Taylor is going to get more playing time again. So there's that, at least. There's kind of a silver lining there. And then Devin Williams has been activated, so his his little soft tissue injury that he had, not something serious, but he is back now. So Devin Williams is also back. Obviously, I mentioned Lorenzo Cain already. Lorenzo Cain is back. But we're going to be without Christian Yelich for a little bit. And then we'll need to see some improvement from him when he gets back. Last thing I want to say before we move on to some trade targets. Trade deadline is Friday. Or Friday night at midnight, whatever, Friday or Saturday, however you want to say it. Before we talk about that, the trade for Willy Adames. Brewers are 38-21 since acquiring Willy Adames. 17 games over 500 since grabbing Willy Adames. I have a Willy Adames jersey on the way. I can't wait till it gets here.
The Brewers are 17 games over 500 right now. So basically, he's the responsibility for it.
I mean, you could look at him as a catalyst, but he has definitely turned around the emotion in the clubhouse.
He has exceeded every expectation that he didn't have because nobody knew. Really, basic fans didn't know anything about him. I mean, I knew very little of him. I just knew that he played for the Rays. I'll be honest with you.
Like, as soon as I saw the deal and I was bummed because we were losing Fireisen. But when I started looking at Adames, it's like, okay. Oh, and he's under team control until 2025. Like, well, okay. All right, cool. This sounds good to me. Yeah. And, the Brewers, David Stearns has done a good job finding replacements in the bullpen. I mentioned it a couple weeks ago that I think bullpen pitching is probably the easiest production to replace as far as baseball is concerned. Yeah. And that's basically been the case for the Brewers since trading for Willy Adames. So definitely some more David Stearns wizardry there. Hoping that we see some more David Stearns wizardry in the upcoming days. I don't know if you want to do one and then I'll do one and then you do one. But we each have 3 trade targets that we would have on a potential wish list for the Brewers to grab before the trade deadline. So I'll let you start first and then I'll give one.
So my first guy that I put on here, me and Tyler were talking about the show. We all have
probably gonna have some same ones.
we all have first baseman. So we think that's the biggest need area for the Brewers. Yep. My first guy plays for the Rockies. His name is CJ Cron. He hits 245. He has 14 home runs, and he plays pretty decent defense. So I thought, a guy with some pop and that hits for a pretty good average. I mean, that's pretty much my trend in this. Is I was watching Council's presser last night when I got home from work, and he got asked a question about hitting home runs and stuff like that. And he said you didn't want to put too much weight in it because, you can't really you can't control that. But he said you have to hit the home run because it's the easiest way to score runs, and you have to score runs. That's just the name of the game. He just gave the stat about scoring 4 runs. If you can get a guy that can hit a 2-run homer and then manufacture 2 more runs, you give yourself an 80+% chance to win the game if you're the Brewers.
Basically, yeah.
So, I mean, if you can find a guy for first base, like a Crow that has 14 home runs and playing on a pretty crappy team in the Rockies, you put yourself in a better position.
So basically, I wrote an article I write for Fansided for the Brewers and the Bucks, and I wrote an article about a guy to trade for and a guy to avoid. My guy to trade for was CJ Cron. He's only making $100,000 this year. He's on a 2-way contract. He's a very low risk, high reward type player. Wouldn't take a lot to get him. And my guy to avoid was a guy that the Brewers checked in on was Josh Donaldson. Don't love that. He's like 3 years past his prime. If we were talking 5 years ago, Toronto Blue Jays, Josh Donaldson, that's a different story. But Josh Donaldson, he's making like $23 million this year.
It's because he's
the first guy that I'm going to offer up and making less than that.
Yeah.
And it's for first baseman. And I've been a Luis Urias truther. Even when he was at shortstop, when we traded Arcia, I felt that was the right move to move on to Luis Urias season. And I like now that he's kind of found his home at third base. And I think he plays a pretty solid third base. I mean, the errors haven't been as big of an issue for him. He still has them here and there. He's only 23. So I'm willing to give him, a little bit of leeway on also playing a position that he's not entirely familiar with. And he's actually hitting the ball pretty decent. He's already shown this year that he's got more pop in his bat than Orlando Arcia ever did. And like I said, he's playing some pretty decent defense. So I don't feel the need to trade for a third baseman. Not to mention that Travis Shaw is also starting his rehab assignment with Nashville. So Travis Shaw is going to be coming back at some point. So I still feel that first base is the biggest position where not only do they need to see, a better offense, but a better defense, a defensive first baseman, which brings me to my first guy, which is Eric Hosmer. And I just wrote an article for him too about could the Brewers be a place where he lands. He would have to waive a no trade clause. He does have, a blocker for Milwaukee. Whether he thought that was, the Brewers weren't going to be a contender anytime soon or anything like that. But he's making $20 million this year, and he makes, I think, 20 next year and then 13 the year after. So his contract is big, but it's also not insurmountable, especially if you're a team where we're talking about how good the Brewers are that can contend for the World Series.
Yes.
We were talking about this last night, that the Pirates are 9 of the Brewers' next 19 games. So the Brewers get to play a bottom-of-the-barrel team while the NL West all beat up on each other. The NL West is tough. They have 3 teams that are going to be gunning for the 1 seed in the NL. So if the Brewers can, just kind of keep cruising, winning ball games, and the NL West beats up on themselves, the Brewers can really, really give this a shot this year. I honestly feel better about this team than I did about the team in 2018, and that team had all the heart. But this team's got damn good pitching, and they have some really fun guys to watch in the field. I feel they just need one more bat, and I feel like Eric Hosmer could be that guy. People are concerned about his contract, but that's really the only concern. He's not been the best as far as, WAR rating, but he's batting .261, which is a lot more than a lot of guys in the Brewers can say. Yeah. And he's playing in a very unfriendly hitter's ballpark. Petco Park is probably the bottom third of hitter-friendly ballparks, and American Family Field is probably in the top third of hitter-friendly ballparks. So he can come here and just mash home runs. He's capable of doing it. And not to mention that, but he's also familiar with Lorenzo Cain. They were together in Kansas City. So, and what I've read about him too, he's a good clubhouse guy. He's good at mentoring young players and stuff like that. So I'm absolutely willing to accept some salary in exchange for having a chance at a World Series. Not saying that Hosmer makes us a World Series favorite, but he's a guy that could contribute. So I'll let you give your second one.
I like that, man. I mean, one thing that you maybe could have mentioned in there is, because we talked about him with Kane in Kansas City, is he has championship experience.
Exactly. Yeah,
so,
that's perfect.
Staying on the KC train, my next guy is actually from KC because Carlos Santana used to mash for the Indians, kind of dipped a little bit, and now he has 17 home runs, hitting .236 this year. So I think, he's played a lot of DH, so not the best on defense, but, we're just talking about gaining another bat. We have so much pitching that I'm really not worried about too much of the defense of the first baseman. You know what I'm saying? I just need a guy that can hit.
Exactly. And to your point, a guy that's DH a lot, like we could use a good pinch hitter. Yeah. Bringing in Keston Hiura to strike out every time he comes in to pinch hit. I would be more comfortable relying on a Carlos Santana than a Jace Peterson, who's actually been pretty decent at times. But, a guy that, Nelson Cruz was a guy that was being mentioned like, hey, could the Brewers go and get Nelson Cruz and bring him back? Carlos Santana's in the same boat as far as, a hitting caliber is concerned.
And Santana's name just started floating around the trade speculations when I was looking on Twitter earlier. I was like, his name just started floating there, man. That could be a guy like the Brewers can just sneak in and grab him real quick, and all of a sudden they just add another power bat to the lineup.
Yeah.
Nothing.
All right. So my second guy, probably take a little more to get him, but I would absolutely love to have this guy on the Brewers, and that's Trey Mancini. Okay. Another first baseman from the Baltimore Orioles. He can hit, he can play defense, and he's just got a great story. The beating cancer and being back and now being an all-star.
Yeah.
just a guy that you'd love to root for. So Trey Mancini is my number 2.
Okay. My number one guy, my number one overall guy, I should say, my third guy on the list is Anthony Rizzo from the Cubs.
Oh. All right, talk it up.
He's a career 269 hitter, so he's a solid hitter.
Nice.
He's hitting 248 this year, 14 home runs, and he's only 2 years removed from hitting nearly 300. Guy plays great defense, and honestly, he's just a good guy. I mean, we heard him when he was mic'd up talking with, Freddie Freeman from the Braves. I mean, Anthony Rizzo is just one of those guys that you can't hate because he's just a good guy. He's a baseball player, and honestly, stealing him from the Cubs and having him come over here and win a ring would be the greatest diss to Chicago that I could just think of.
So I have a slash on my third one, and that's Anthony Rizzo or Chris Bryant.
Okay. You took them both.
So I have a reason for it before you give me shit. So Anthony Rizzo, awesome, just naturally because he plays first base. If there was a guy that I had to pick from a Chicago team that I like, it would be Anthony Rizzo because, like you said, he's just a likable guy if you get him out of the Cubs uniform.
Yeah.
The only problem I have with this, and I have another Cub slashed in this, and I only included the other guy because Vegas apparently seems to think that there's a 4-1 chance that we land him, and that's Chris Bryant.
Really?
I mean, we have the third highest Vegas odds to land Chris Bryant.
Holy shit.
Don't ask me why. I don't even know if the Brewers have called the Cubs and been like, hey, Chicago, what are you? And then being hung up on by the Cubs, who aren't going to trade any other guys in division. I don't see it as terribly logical or terribly likely that the Cubs are willing to trade in division. But, if the price is right, the Cubs got to do what they got to do to get some prospects in there and, start their rebuild. So Rizzo and Chris Bryant are my last 1/2.
I think from what I read, Rizzo has a club option next year, if I remember correctly, because the Cubs had to pick up a pretty expensive club option this year to bring him back. It was like $20 million or something like that.
Okay.
And I think he has another one coming next year. So I mean, them trading, Rizzo to us would really only hurt them this year, and then we could just get rid of Rizzo and go on a search for 900 first baseman next year again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and bring back 3 of them and put Keston Hiura back at first base.
And then we'll just go through the whole thing all over again.
And so, to your point, I had CJ Cron written down originally, and I crossed him off just because what I think is going to happen is, the Brewers are going to check in on Rizzo, and they'll check in on Mancini, and they'll check in on Hosmer, and then none of those, the Stearns won't, the price won't be right for David Stearns, and then he'll flip a AA prospect for CJ Cron. Is where I'm feeling that this is going to go, that he's going to check in on all these guys, that these high profile guys, the price is going to be too high, and then he's going to be like, hey, Colorado, what do you need for CJ Cron? And they're going to grab him.
Yep.
I'd be okay with it. It would be a serviceable upgrade, a high reward, low risk type trade, but it just wouldn't be sexy like grabbing an Anthony Rizzo or even a Trey Mancini. So
Anthony Rizzo would be a massive splash, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, that would be a big deal. But the main takeaway there is that the Cubs are sellers, and they'll be in the basement with the Pirates in the division.
I wanted to bring up one more thing. Hang on, I gotta go back to my Brewers here. Okay, so since we like to bring up run differential in baseball talk, the Cubs run differential is -23, and the Brewers is +74 right now. That kind of flipped, didn't it?
Right during that Cubs series.
We don't even have prime Yelich right now. Wait till he comes back, because he's coming.
We have high walkout, high strikeout Yelich right now.
Yeah, Yelich is coming back, and when he comes back, we are about to be a problem. That's all I know, buddy. I think we might be going for 2 titles in the 4-1-4 this year, maybe.
How about this? How about 3 in Wisconsin?
We'll get there. If the Packers win the title, like if the Brewers and Packers win the title, I might just quit my job because I'll just be like, I don't know what's going to happen. We're probably going to get hit with some asteroids. I don't know what's going to happen right now. That would just be insane, dude.
We just have to like become, professional streakers or something.
I don't know about that, buddy.
We'll just do the Forrest Gump thing naked, and we'll just be, Packers, Bucks, and the Brewers all won championships.
Oh man,
I don't know why that's where my brain went, but
hey, right.
It would be crazy, but the potential for it all is there. It's not. It's not something where you'd put $1 down on it in Vegas and you'd take home $1 million if it happened. Like it's plausible that it could happen.
Yeah.
We talk about the show, we talk about ourselves, and we describe ourselves as cautiously optimistic. That's one of those things where it's not like, the Brewers are going to win the World Series and then the Packers are going to win the Super Bowl and that's what's going to happen. That's not how we approach it. We take it as that could happen.
Yeah, man.
These are what need to happen to make that the reality. So we're going to close out the show with closing out the Bucks season, a team that did make the what could happen a reality and brought it into a championship. First one in 50 years. Last week, we spent the whole episode talking about it, talking about the NBA and how the Bucks were able to bring this together. And, one of the things that you said going into the playoffs and all throughout the playoffs that really stuck with me was every time somebody complained about injuries, the two things that I replied with was one, the thing that you said, which is health is a skill, and two, that the best ability is availability.
Yes.
It's often the case that the healthiest team is the team that goes the deepest. And the Bucks weren't even fully healthy. They were without Dante DiVincenzo after the Miami series and still put it all together to go and win a title. So we want to talk about games 5 and 6 and some of the afterglow from the championship. So let's start with game 5 and let's talk about the Bucks.
Man, game 5 was incredible, man. That, honest to God, other than the Nets series, because those were some really good games. The Bucks and Nets all season long were great games. And I said before the series that Suns and Bucks were great games because they were only separated by 1 point in the regular season. And both were Suns wins. But man, they went back and forth in this game. Not in the first quarter. The first quarter, they punched us in the mouth, and we're up by 16.
They made 10 straight shots in 4 minutes.
Yeah, they were going absolutely insane. And everybody in Phoenix is celebrating, and they're mocking Giannis at the free throw line, and then Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton started to take over, and it got real quiet out there. In the game, Devin Booker ended with 40. His second of back-to-back 40-point games. Ayton had 20 and 10. Chris Paul, 21 and 11. They combined, now this is going to be a trend for me. They combined for 81 points, 16 rebounds, 15 assists. It's pretty solid for a big three, right?
Yeah, that'll do.
It don't matter when you go against this big three in this game. Because Giannis had 32, 9, and 6. Chris Middleton, 29, 7, and 5. Bunch of jump shots. Drew Holiday, 27, 4, and 13. Again, a bunch of jump shots. He did one thing. Let me get to my point real quick. They combined for 88 points, 20 rebounds, 24 assists. The Bucks as a team had 37 rebounds. They had 20 of the 37 rebounds. The Bucks had a team had 26 assists. Our big three had 24 of the 26 assists. That's insane.
You know what that says to me? That's Budenholzer saying, hey, you three are my best players. You three touch the ball. That's it. You're putting the ball in the hands of your best player.
And, when we get to game 6, I'll make a point about that because I have something ready for that, to your point. But, the Suns didn't turn the ball over a lot. They had 8 turnovers. They shot the ball well. They shot 55%. The Bucks just shot 57%. And during the game, the entire time, they were talking about how there was great defense, but just better offense, which is to your point, what you talked about during Packer season last year. You said offense always beats defense, and it does. Sometimes you could play perfect, and it does not matter.
It doesn't matter. Like with Devin Booker, sometimes it just doesn't matter. You can play 23 and a half seconds of good defense and still get scored on.
And Pat Connaughton did that a lot this series.
Yeah.
Devin Booker just made shots, man. And when he does those little turnarounds and he double clutches and he's fading and
Yeah,
that's
the
where he
mid-range
was
fadeaway.
trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about that.
But the play of the century is what won the Bucks this game, and I think the title was when he drove on PJ. Giannis comes in doubles. He turns from the double team, which you're supposed to do. You're taught to turn from the double team. And Drew Holiday, who played absolutely amazing defense this entire series, comes over and rips the ball away from Devin Booker. And I shit you not, I have watched that play about 300 times. My girlfriend, I'll be laying in bed, right? We'll be going to bed. I'll be like, all right, I have to listen to it one more time. I will, till this day. Last night, I even did it last night. I play the play, and I'm like, and Son's at the foul, and he goes, throw it down by Antetokounmpo. I will never forget that feeling of watching the Bucks do that play and win Game 5 to take a 3-2 lead.
I remember during that play, I'm thinking, Booker's driving. I'm like, don't foul. And I'm like, he stripped it. And then, they go down and they get the alley-oop, and it was a ceiling thing, and I agree with you. I think it locked down the title because I felt very strongly that the Bucks coming home for an elimination game in Milwaukee with how nuts that crowd was going to be, I think I said 95% sure that the Bucks were going to win that game, that they weren't going to lose at home. I say 95% just because, like I said, I describe our show as cautiously optimistic. Anything can happen, but I was very confident in the Bucks winning at home in a potential finals clinching game.
There was nothing cautious about me Game 6. I said, bro, 100%. There's no way in hell they lose at home right now. There's no way in hell. There was no way. I did not believe it. I could not think of a scenario, like Doctor Strange in the Marvel movies. I couldn't cook up a scenario where the Bucks lose out of a billion chances. I was like, there's no way. No. Giannis is saying
you brought up the collective of the big three. I have it written down next to all their stats that it was the best collective big three game. Oh, and I think that that's true for the playoffs and the regular season. I really think that. All three of them just filling up the stat sheet. You mentioned the 32, 9-6 by Giannis. I also have written down 0 turnovers.
Yep.
That's a big deal. And that's something I'm going to mention when he's asked about how he felt he played in the finals. One of the things that he said, I'm going to come back to that. But so we talked about Devin Booker.
I think I know what you're going to say.
Nah, you might. Like I said, like I have said, great offense beats great defense every time. This is how it goes. So the Bucks played pretty good defense on Devin Booker. He just hits tough shots and he scores by volume. That's how he is. Another play that I want to bring up with Drew Holiday, and Drew Holiday, he's masterful at letting a guy dribble into his body and then just using his hand to poke the ball away. He is absolutely masterful at it. He's so damn good at letting a guy just dribble up into his body and then using his left hand, which, I don't know if he's left-handed or right-handed or if he's both, but, he's really, really good with that left hand. So Devin Booker drives into the body of Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday pokes it away, right at half court, and the Suns have 2 guys back while Drew Holiday's bringing the ball up. Drew Holiday gets to, the elbow, realizes he doesn't have numbers, takes 2 steps back, looks down at the floor to lull Devin Booker to sleep, pulls up a 3, and I'm like, as soon as I saw him start stepping back, I knew he was pulling and hitting that 3 because he lulled Booker to sleep, took 2 steps back, shot the 3, dropped it.
That was so dirty. He stole it from him, then hit the 3 in his face.
He did.
Freaking go.
Just lull him to sleep and then just drain the 3 on him. This was probably Pat Connaughton's best game in the playoffs. He had 14 points and 6 rebounds, played good defense, and he was getting targeted almost every single time.
Yep.
And he still played pretty solid defense on Chris Paul and Devin Booker. He got some fouls. He gets scored on sometimes, but he played some pretty solid defense. And he doesn't get credit for that. Honestly, he doesn't. And he doesn't really get credit for being a good shooter either. And, he's had situations where he's gotten some foul calls on Devin Booker and Chris Paul. Game 5, 0 fouls. 14 points, 6 rebounds, and 0 fouls from Pat Connaughton in a 2-2 tied finals game.
On the road, bro.
People thought he was getting overpaid because he's making $5 million.
$5 million is chump change, bro. We got LeBron out here making 40.
and the thing with Pat Connaughton is he was playing really tough defense on Booker. Booker airballed 2 shots at the end of the third quarter. Not 1, 2. Airball. Pat Connaughton playing defense on him.
Hey, we wore Booker down. That's all I'm gonna say.
And
Booker got wore down.
And playoff Pat, 4 for 6 on threes, tied for second on the team in plus minus at plus 10. So being targeted by Chris Paul and Devin Booker, both really good mid-range scorers and just solid scorers in general, to finish plus 10, I give Pat Connaughton huge props. Huge props for Pat Connaughton. And so we talked about after game 3, I went on a rant about Monty Williams complaining about Giannis shooting a bunch of free throws. And then Chris Paul, after game 5, comes out and says, we're fouling Giannis. We expect him to miss. He expects himself to miss. Contradicting exactly what his head coach just said like 4 days before that. Oh, the coach is saying, we're not trying to foul him and we're not trying to give him 17 free throws a game. And then you're, Chris Paul, who's arguably one of the smartest players in basketball, you're going to think that he's not on the same page with his head coach while they're in the finals about fouling Giannis and expecting him to miss free throws? That goes perfectly hand in hand with what I said about Monty Williams, that you're not mad that he got those free throws. You're mad that he made them.
100%.
Because your point guard contradicted what you were complaining about. So get out of here with that. You're not mad that he got him. You're mad that he made them. And that was your strategy, was to force Giannis to miss free throws, which he did not do in game 6. So let's move on to game 6. I'll let you start. And then we'll talk about some of the after stuff.
Game 6, man. Wow. For all the good shooting that the Bucks had and the Suns had in game 5, they did not have it in game 6.
Especially in the first quarter.
Yeah, both teams came out tight. I mean, the Bucks were feeling the pressure because they had a chance to win the title at home. The Suns are feeling the pressure because they're young and they know they have to have this one.
It's an elimination game.
And, my saying about Book got wore down really showed in game 6. That's why I said that. He was 8 of 22 at 19 points. I mean, he had great back-to-back 40-point games. Nothing against Book. But he got wore down. 0 for 7 from 3. Chris Paul had 26, 11 of 19. Chris Paul played pretty well. But DeAndre Ayton was really the reason that they lost. First of all, he was short-arming everything. Couldn't score. And he was not stopping Giannis.
On that point about DeAndre Ayton, once you finish it, I want to say something. But go ahead.
Giannis was a man amongst boys. He was literally a grown man playing with kids in game 6. Chris Middleton had a pretty solid game, 17, 5 of 5, 6 of 13. But Jrue Holiday, he still rebounded the ball, played amazing defense, but his scoring was not there, really, honestly. He had a couple key buckets, some layups, a couple jumpers, but, he made 4 total field goals and 2 of them were threes. So, that's pretty good. If you're going to make shots, make them threes at least, get an extra point. Yep. But going into, we had 6 threes. The Bucks had 6 threes as a team. In game 5, we had 6 threes between Chris Middleton and Jrue Holiday alone. So one thing I really wanted to point out that I really, really liked is they destroyed the boards. The Bucks had 53 rebounds to 37. So I thought that was really, really key. But really game 6 was just the Giannis show. And like I mentioned earlier in the show, that Bobby Portis was the only player to score off the bench with 16.
He had 10 in the first quarter.
I know. He was balling, dude. Me and my dad were texting during the game, and we were talking about how Giannis was, doing this, and we still needed one guy to get hot. And my dad was like, maybe Portis off the bench. And I was like, could be Portis. He's been, Chris Middleton was playing all right, but he's really been the only other reliable player. Drew did a really, really nice play where he dribbled with his left hand and passed it to Brook Lopez. And I haven't seen Brook Lopez dunk like that in like 6 years, dude. He rose up and he started screaming. That was a loud dunk.
Dude, he got high for that too.
Dog, everybody talks about how he can't jump. Bro, get him some adrenaline. That big boy will jump.
And he held it way up there. He didn't go at it like this. He was Statue of Liberty all the way up, all the way down. And that was part of
I like DeAndre as a player.
On DeAndre Ayton.
I like DeAndre Ayton, but dude, they went at him. They were pretty much like, listen, young buck, we are hey, I'll get to that point. I'm gonna let Tyler talk first, but I'm gonna get to that. But man, they went right at DeAndre. Giannis and Brook, they were just like, listen, kid, it's our time now. And so I'm gonna let you go before I talk about the middies, bro.
So, handful of things. That Brook dunk kicked off a mini run by Brook Lopez. He scored 6 straight points, took us from down 1 to up 5. Yep. That was something that stood out. When we get to the end of this game, I want to talk about the officiating. I hate doing it, but I feel that it needs to be addressed. So in Game 5, they went from their highest scoring quarter by scoring 43 in the second quarter to their lowest scoring quarter in the first quarter. Or in the second quarter, only 13 points. They started 1 for 9. That was the one quarter where Giannis was not hitting everything. He was settling for a lot of jumpers even early in the shot clock. I was a little discouraged by it, but that second quarter was just awful all around. You talked about the slow start for both teams. I wrote down that there was jitters. There was way too many turnovers at the beginning of that game. I've hammered on it the entire playoffs. You just can't turn the ball over in the playoffs. You can't do it. Kills you. And the Bucks did it a lot in the first quarter, a little bit less in the second quarter, but they couldn't make any shots in the second quarter then. But they were able to get themselves into a position where they were only down 5 at halftime. I don't know if I should talk about it now or after, but I'm just going to bring it up now. I give Budenholzer a huge scoop of credit for the adjustments that he made from games 1 and 2 to the rest of the series. And that is what my key was going into games 4, 5, and 6 was taking DeAndre Ayton out of the game. Because he is their offensive and defensive anchor by being their pick and roll man and also by being their man in the middle on defense. So you brought it up that Giannis went at Ayton. And what they did was they took Brook Lopez off of him on defense and put Giannis on him. So Giannis can roam around and do his, getting blocks off the backboard, which Giannis was the first player ever to drop 50 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 blocks in a finals game.
Dude,
first ever, 1 of 1. So there's that. So he's guarding Ayton, who's hanging in the paint, lets Giannis, be the weak side guy to just get blocks. And then the Bucks were actually rotating to Ayton pretty well. They had one play where they got, miscommunication, and Ayton got a dunk, and Pat Connaughton, I think, fouled him for an and one. But other than that, like even Bobby Portis, who we've talked about not being a great defender, was doing some good help side rotating on defense. Something that jumped out to me, which is kind of weird. Did you notice that the lineup at the end of the first quarter was huge? They had eight or not. Yeah, that's definitely Ayton's confidence. That's something that being a 22-year-old in a high pressure situation will do to you.
The 3 at the end of the first.
Giannis, Bobby Portis, and Brook Lopez all on the floor at the same time.
Yeah, that is humongous.
That's huge.
And
the Bucks have a size advantage, and then they're like, "Hey, look at it all at once."
Yeah.
Can you see anything? Can you see anything? And just a massive lineup at the end of the first quarter. Like I said, I'll hold off talking about the officiating until we get to the end of the game. But the one thing I want to give another credit to Budenholzer is the Bucks have been pretty good coming out of halftime and being aggressive in the third quarter of games. And that was absolutely the case in this game. And that third quarter is obviously what swung the game from, maybe the Suns can win to, no, the Bucks are finishing this out.
Yeah. I wanted to get back to Giannis hitting middies. I was telling people all year that Giannis is working on a little turnaround.
Post fade.
We're in games against Memphis and we're in games against, Golden States and stuff like that. And we were really just feeling stuff out, man. Feeling lineups. Giannis was just working on stuff. Like, they really just used the regular season as a long preseason to work on stuff because they knew
That's
they were
what we
going to
talked about it. We talked about that. And
Yeah.
Dylan, I wish you would have been with us, after the All-Star break. And, we're talking about, the win-loss record isn't as important as the context of the games.
Yeah. But how does a guy with no skill score 50 in the finals? I just want to know. I mean,
I don't know. You could ask James Harden if he's ever played a finals game.
no, he's just over in France getting high with Lil Baby. And don't tell me he wasn't doing drugs. Look at his eyeballs. That dude is high as hell, man. He is just going crazy
I
over
don't
there.
understand how you can look at Giannis and think that he doesn't have any skill. How many 6'11" dudes you see that can handle the ball at all? Like KD can, but he's top 3 in the league.
You want to know a thing that really, really bothers me about basketball? I've really wanted to say this for the longest time. When people talk about skill, they talk about just offense, dribbling the ball and shooting the ball. They do not consider defense. Because when people talk about defense, they just say, oh, he's a really good two-way player.
I'm about to get angry.
Okay. Me too. Okay. I'm trying to hold
all
on.
right. So since the season's end, all right. Buckle up, everybody. Here we go. Tyler's going on a rant.
Okay, hang on 1 second. Giannis is the best or the second best two-way player in the league behind Kawhi Leonard when healthy. That is just my opinion. Defense is a skill. Defense still wins championships. Look at the Super Bowl with Tampa Bay. Look at the Bucks in the finals this year. Excuse me. The baseball will probably be a team that has really, really good pitching and really, really good defense.
Brewers.
You know what? If they don't score, you can't lose. And that's just the name of the game. And now time for Tyler's rant.
Stop putting James Harden ahead of Giannis in anything. I don't give a damn if it's when he's healthy, he's better. No, I don't give a damn if it's, who's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Giannis is already more accomplished than James Harden is. He's better than James Harden is, and he's had a better career already. The only reason that he doesn't have as many All-NBA appearances is because he hasn't been an All-NBA player as long because he didn't come in as a proven prospect. So stop putting James Harden ahead of him for active players or, Hall of Fame resumes. He's already more accomplished than James Harden. I had somebody tell me that he wasn't because he only had one more MVP. While conveniently leaving out the fact that he's got a ring, a most improved, a defensive player of the year, and I believe 3 All-NBA defense. Stop putting James Harden ahead of Giannis. He's not better than him. And James Harden is in for a rude awakening this coming season when those rules change. Honestly, if you ask me, that rule that's coming about jump shooters not being able to move in unnatural movements and motions and not being able to kick their legs in an unnatural way, or, the Chris Paul thing where he's got somebody right behind him and he just stops dribbling so that he gets run into. That's not going to be a defensive foul anymore. That rule, to me, that was made for James Harden. Because nobody is impressed by you scoring 35 points a game while you're shooting 20 for 21 at the free throw line. Nobody gives a shit that you're scoring more than half of your points off of pump faking and then jumping sideways into a guy.
To be completely honest, Tim, I'm going to go to Tim's comment real quick.
Do it.
The Nets might be in trouble because Kyrie just had another mental health explosion today. And me and Tyler are very big on mental health, but Kyrie needs to step away from basketball for a little bit, man. He does not handle this media pressure stuff very good. He is not.
He went to New York. Bad call.
Yeah, he's not a PR guy. So he just had a whole thing about his Nike shoes being released, blah, blah, blah. Go look that up. KD's over here playing with Team USA and losing to freaking France. And freaking Evan Fournier. He's like the 95th best player in the league. And then, he's aging, so he wants the ring chase. You know that for a fact. And KD's very good. I got nothing bad to say about KD. But then James Harden's over here, showing up overweight, getting high, hanging out with rappers. I have said this about Tyler Hero, and I'm going to say it about James Harden. They are celebrities, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But when we're talking about basketball, I'm on a goddamn basketball player, and that is exactly what Giannis is. Giannis is a basketball player. He is a leader, and he is going to go on that court of 94 feet, and he is going to punish you. So if I'm going to pay a guy max dollars, I want a basketball player. I don't need a celebrity. I saw a thing about people trying to trade for Tyler Hero, bring him back home. You leave Tyler Hero's ass down in Miami, okay? He's busy with them strippers and Jack Harlow. No,
give me Dante. Give me Dante.
That shit here, man. I want basketball players. I want to win. I only get to watch these guys for 10, 15 years. I want to tell stories about how much fun it was watching them be together and be a basketball team. I don't need celebrities, bro. You could be a celebrity after.
So the way that you're talking about this stuff is what I was trying to convey last week and the week before when I'm saying, like, hey, like, we are living in the now, but like appreciate how this is going to go down in history.
Yeah, man.
So that being said, I wrote an article about it because I was so impressed about the way that Giannis talks all the time. He's just so outwardly like humble, but also, he knows, what he's done, but he's put the work in to get to that point. So you can't say that he has no skill and then, look at what he's done and say, yeah, that guy doesn't have any skill. But then also, like, the first thing that he says after they win the title is he talks about Chris Middleton. The first thing he does after they clinch the game is he goes and he hugs his girlfriend who is pregnant with their second child.
And his mom and his brother.
And his mom. Did you see the hat that his mom was wearing?
Yep, the draft hat.
His mom was wearing the NBA draft hat from 2013.
Man, I cover your kids' ears. I fucking love Giannis, dude. We deserve Giannis. I really feel that way. Every city deserves a Giannis. He is honestly on top of being, just a straight up killer, and he's awesome, mean mugging and dunking on people and flexing, and all his 1,075 million muscles show up in his arm.
Dude, his shoulder muscles are insane.
He's just a good guy, man. He's got a great heart, and you can just tell that he wears that sucker on his sleeves, and I love that guy, man. You guys see what? Yeah, man, he's scoring. He's a bucket, man. And Tyler and I have talked about Noah, man. We've talked about him improving defense and learning angles and becoming a better rebounder, and he's got a spot in this rotation next year.
He does. He absolutely does. He can take Bryn Forbes' place as far as I'm concerned. Tim, to your point, it kind of goes with what Dylan said about DeAndre Ayton's confidence. That's why we talked about this a whole bunch of times about why Jordan Nwora is not going to see playing time in these playoffs, even when the Bucks were struggling shooting. And, people are like, Jordan Nwora is a shooter, put him in. Like, pump the brakes. He's a rookie. You don't want to put him into that situation where he's got all that pressure just to have him crumble. Give him time. Let him acclimate. And now, he's showing off a little bit of swag. He's like, hey, I'm a champion. Watch me drop 33 on you.
He got that championship experience. He scored in the finals, technically. So, yep. Get him in those game situations next year in the regular season, when we're working through things and figuring out our rotations. And, yeah, man, we could really figure this out. I don't think the Bucks are done. The Bucks are set up, having the big three signed. The Bucks are set up to compete for a while, man. And, if what I think about the Nets is true, you hear the latest on Ben Simmons?
They're asking for a Harden-type trade package for Ben Simmons.
Apparently, he's not answering Philadelphia's phone calls. He doesn't want to talk to them.
Because the first call that he gets from them is probably going to be that he's getting traded.
They've been trying to call him to, bring him in and, talk to him and, see how he feels about the situation, if he wants to be traded, all that stuff. He hasn't answered. That man is gone.
And he's honestly that takes immaturity, honestly, is what I take from that. But
he's young. I have an idea. There is going to be a 3-team trade. It is going to involve Philly. It is going to involve Portland, and it is going to involve Golden State. Do what
You
you
might as
want
well throw it out there. You might as well throw it out there.
I think Ben Simmons is going to the Blazers. The Blazers are going to go into a little mini rebuild. They get a superstar to replace their superstar so they can still keep their faithful happy. I think that Philly ends up with a bunch of draft picks. You know, they end up with the draft pick tomorrow night. I think that's what's going to happen. And I think Golden State ends up with Damian Lillard. Golden State's going to be aggressive.
We'll see what happens. Philly's trading Ben Simmons. That's going to happen.
Ben Simmons is going to Portland. I feel
Philly with Ben Simmons doesn't concern me as a threat to the Bucks. Honestly, Brooklyn, like, they have 3 very good players. Kyrie Irving is not top 15, and James Harden is not top 10. So that goes along with what I said about Giannis. Like, stop putting James Harden in front of him. James Harden's not a top 10 player going forward.
With the new rule, I have a hard time putting James Harden top 15, to be completely freaking honest with you.
I'd have him somewhere in that 12 area. But that being said, you have so much money tied up in those 3 of Kyrie, KD, and James Harden that you have no cap space to sign anybody else. They literally brought in Blake Griffin because Detroit didn't want him there sucking up all their money anymore. So, you know, the Nets were able to grab him for the veteran minimum for the rest of the season. And he ended up being one of their biggest contributors outside of their big 3.
Staying on the Nets, Jeff Green and the Bucks have some mutual interest, buddy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he could be filling in that Bobby Portis role potentially next year. So
Uncle Jeff, baby, come to Mill.
Come and knock some threes down for us. Stop going 6 for 7 against the Bucks. Don't do that.
Yeah, man, what the hell?
As far as the rest of the East is concerned, I don't feel that Atlanta is going to be a continuous threat. They're going to be a continuous playoff team, but they do not have enough defense or physicality to hang with the Bucks. They don't.
They don't have no pinch, dude. They have nothing.
So I really believe that the East is the Bucks for the taking as far as the near future is concerned, unless something drastic happens.
Well, the Raptors just became sellers immediately after they won their championship because Siakam's on the block.
Yeah, and Lowry's talking about leaving. So
the Cavaliers Lowry's going to go over. It's going to be the Bucks in LA next year.
Oh, Brewers just made a trade.
Uh-oh. Who they get?
Brewers got Eduardo Escobar, infielder from the Diamondbacks.
Okay.
So that's infield depth.
Okay.
Doesn't say what they gave up for him yet, but the Brewers got Eduardo Escobar.
Look at that. Anyway, we're reporting stuff live.
Yeah, right? So that's that. You have anything else about Game 6 at all that you want to share before we talk about just some of the after stuff?
Nah, man. It was just the honest show, man. I should go get my championship hat. I went to the mall in Appleton and bought myself a championship hat. I ordered a couple T-shirts online because I couldn't wait to go to the mall, and then I got some pretty sick looking shorts coming my way too. They're the old purple shorts, like the old purple jerseys, except it says Bucks on the front.
Nice.
They look dope, man. I'm pretty excited.
All right. So really quick before we move on, I told you I wanted to talk about the officiating because like I said this in the past, that I don't think that officiating makes things rigged, but I do feel that things can be persuaded. And I feel that in this game, the officials made a lot of calls that they didn't need to make, but they decided to be like, hey, like, look at me, I'm here in the finals too. I can blow my whistle. And it was, oh my God, it was a bunch of things. So, one, Devin Booker driving on Bobby Portis. Devin Booker creates all the contact, and Bobby Portis gets called for a foul. Whatever. That sucks. Another one. Giannis picking up the ball and taking 2 steps behind half court as he's bringing the ball up the floor gets called for a travel. Like, really? Really? Because he took the half an extra step? Like, really? Like, technically, yeah, he did, but really?
I mean, dude, they let people get away with like 4 or 5 steps when they're going to the rim. I understand why they called it, but I also understand your point.
Another one, DeAndre Ayton getting Chris Middleton switched onto him and hooking his arm like this, and Chris Middleton just trying to get his arm away from DeAndre Ayton, getting called for a foul. That irritated the hell out of me. Like, DeAndre Ayton, you're 7 feet tall, and you're hooking a guy into a cheap foul. Like, really?
Yeah, that's
and then 2 basket interferences, one called on the Bucks and one not called on the Suns. First, Jay Crowder grabs the net as Giannis's shot is bouncing on the rim, doesn't get called basket interference. And then, if this is the front of the cylinder of, the rim, Brook Lopez grabs the ball while it's right here and gets called for basket interference.
Yeah.
On a play that was quite obviously a lob pass.
My girlfriend just
I saw that. Yeah. And then the last one, Jay Crowder falling down. He literally just slipped. He slipped on his own feet. He just slipped and got a foul call.
I have to say, though, it created one of the greatest gifts of all time, man. I am going to be using that Bobby Portis.
Yeah, Bobby Portis running down with jazz hands, and then he got
just high stepping. He's going to the end zone.
That was so annoying. Like, he slipped. The floor was wet. He slipped, and you're giving Bobby Portis a foul for that. Like, and the Booker drive on Bobby Portis. Of course, as Booker goes and does his chicken wing, Bobby Portis blocks his shot, and then he gets a foul call.
Yeah, but then he came down against Giannis, and Giannis pretty much just said, "Yeah, not in my house." Put Spalding right across his face.
So yeah, I wanted to mention that before we moved on to the post game stuff, which for me it's a lot about Giannis as far as post game stuff is concerned. I want to give credit to Pat Connaughton, shot 15 for 34 on threes in the finals. Like, literally nobody shot well for the Bucks in most of the playoffs from the 3-point line, but Pat Connaughton did. And he was just about 50% in the finals. And, he was 0 for 4 in game 6. So he was exactly 50% going into game 6. I want to give you credit and Mike Budenholzer for the full court pressure on Chris Paul. That was something that you were talking about going into games 3, 4, 5, and 6. Is that, letting Chris Paul come up the floor and, he's just dribbling with no pressure on him, and he can point, tell people where to go and see where all the defense is and stuff like that. The full court pressure, then he's got to dribble with his back to the basket, and he's got to worry about the defender right up next to him instead of being able to communicate with his teammates while he's bringing the ball up the floor. So I wanted to give you credit for calling for that, and I wanted to give Budenholzer credit for putting that into action. The rest of what I have...
I'm going to steal one of your lines. Sometimes I'm smart.
The rest of what I have is all about Giannis. And I'm going to start with the good stuff before I get to the edgy stuff. And first thing that he does when he gets to his podium after the game is he puts on a Jim Paschke t-shirt. Puts on a t-shirt that says, "I heart Jim Paschke." Very happy that the Bucks were able to get a ring for him when he retired. But he talked about not caring about being popular. I've said it a bunch of times that Giannis was the perfect guy to draft for a small market.
Yeah.
Milwaukee's a big market to him. He doesn't care about LA or New York. He talked about when he was younger about, speaking up around his teammates and Chris Middleton encouraging him and saying, "Hey, like, we'd rather have you say something that's, kind of hard for us to understand than to have you say nothing at all." So Chris Middleton really played a big part in Giannis's development by making him more comfortable and by being a good teammate.
We have to give credit to Kid for that too. So
I
remember
agree.
hearing stories about him forcing Middleton and Giannis to talk at practice. Nobody else was allowed to say anything but those two. I remember hearing about that. Do you remember that?
And then the last guy that I want to give credit to is PJ Tucker. When he came, he's a veteran locker room presence. And he's telling Giannis to speak up. He's telling Giannis to talk to him. And, you've talked about it too, about Giannis really emerging as a leader this year.
Yes.
And he's really becoming, he's only 26, but he's becoming, the veteran in the locker room. He's only 26, but he's been around the league for 8 years already.
I know, man.
So, and he talked about the mentality of, starting down 2-0. And how, that can be a tough spot to be in. And with his the quote that he had about staying in the now and not about in the past because that's your ego, and in the future because that's pride. But being in the now and saying, they won 2-0, they won 2 games in a row. Why can't we? And that was the mentality that the Bucks had, going into games 3 and 4, playing at home. So that's the emotional maturity that Giannis had, was just really on full display after the championship and, the days following. Even in the Chick-fil-A thing, which was hilarious and really funny that he had to go and he's like, I stole the trophies and I got to go take them back.
Yeah.
But then the last thing that I have about Giannis was when he's asked about, how he felt he played in the finals, and he says, motherfuckers didn't know I could pass.
Man, they should. Oh, he's not skilled. He's running dunk, man. I'm so sick of that, bro. I hope he killed all that, dude. I really do.
We talked about it. That Giannis actually has pretty good court vision. And that's why, when we talked about game 5, when we talked about him having 6 assists, that he had no turnovers. It's not like he's throwing the ball, just to try to not have the ball in his hands. And that is something that I give Budenholzer credit for, is the system that he's implemented is that so Giannis can know where people are. Brook Lopez did it a couple of times where he tried to pass the ball to the ref because he was looking to the corner and nobody was there. But Giannis, he knows where everybody is because of the system that's around him, and that has allowed Giannis to flourish. So that being said, I want to close out my analysis as far as the Bucks are concerned for this season with saying that Giannis is the absolute perfect star for Milwaukee on the court, off the court, every aspect.
I agree, man. I got nothing to say against you. I 100% agree with you. I hope Giannis is a Buck for life. I really do. It would be a damn shame if he left us at the end of his career. At this point, how I feel about Giannis is he's probably my second favorite athlete in the state of Wisconsin. It's really hard for me to pick somebody over Aaron Rodgers because I really love Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers has been here for a long, long time, double the time that Giannis has. And I do love football a little bit more than basketball, but I sure love basketball a lot. But it's very tough for me to pick somebody over Rodgers. But Giannis, he's doing it, man. He's just a good guy. First and foremost, as a person, Giannis is definitely my favorite over Rodgers as a person. Yeah. Just his personality. He's goofy. He's just a 7-foot tall kid, really. Man, it's just crazy how goofy he is. The whole blowjob bell and remember that, bro?
I forgot about that, dude.
No, he said, I'm a freak on the cut and a freak in the sheets. He's just, the way that he carries himself as a person, man, is, something that I'm okay with, my stepson looking up to. I mean, the way that Giannis carries himself, he's a professional on the court. Off the court, you could be yourself. You could be goofy, man. Do what you got to do. But you don't have to be rude, and you don't have to hang out with all these $1 million people, or you don't have to go to strip clubs, and you don't have to do all that stuff, man. You can just, be about your family, and I like that. So he's setting a good example for the kids, and he's really showing how to dominate the game in a different way. He's a hybrid Shaq. I mean, everybody compares him to Shaq, but he's a hybrid Shaq. He's a new age Shaq. He could dribble the ball. He could pass the ball. And now he's adding a little bit of mid-range in there, man. Giannis is going to end up being a player that we've never seen before. He really is at this point.
I think he might already be.
Yeah,
just because he's, like you said, he's basically Shaq in the paint, but then he can dribble and pass, and now he's hitting, post fades.
You can use him in the pick and roll as a ball handler, as the screener. He can, and if he starts picking and popping, dude, it's fucking over. It is over. Everybody else go home, plan your vacations, because if Giannis is doing all 3 of those things, I don't know how the hell you stop the Bucks. I really don't. But we will wait to see what he does. Hopefully he just continues to have that success from the free throw line that he had in game 6, 17 and 19. So we'll go from there. But Giannis, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, man, I know you might never see this video, but if somehow you see this, I want to say thank you very much for all the memories that you've given me this playoff run.
And, we're at a situation where, like I said, he's 26. He's going to be here for at least another 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
If the Bucks can find a way to to go on a run and win a couple more championships, we could be in a situation where Giannis goes down as the best Wisconsin athlete of all time.
Yeah.
It's very possible, and it's not outside the realm of imagination to think that could happen. So enjoy now, because it's history in the making.
Well, enjoy now just because you only have one life to live, you know? I mean, I'm going to go back to being a life philosopher, but everybody stop looking into the future, man. Your life isn't that bad, bro. You go to work, you enjoy your family, you plan stuff with your family, you just enjoy your people you love. I mean, there's a lot of theories out there, so
have some fun. That's what Jake and I are doing with the show. We're having fun.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go upstairs and I gotta snuggle a baby after this. So my life is pretty damn good, man.
I gotta go let some dogs out.
All right, man.
All right. Look forward to talking next week. Probably gonna have mostly Brewers next week, and maybe we'll have some Bucks and Packers news. But all right, man. I'll see you next week.
Hey, I'll be seeing you in real life again pretty soon, buddy.
Yep. Next week. Don't forget Friday instead of Wednesday next week.
And then a week after that is Tyler's birthday. So everybody put that date on your calendar and say happy birthday to my boy.
All right. Take care, man. See you next week.
Later, buddy.